Welcome back to The Word in the Works, TWTW. I'm Pastor Ben Meyer and my co-host, Pastor Jason Goodham. We are in Frankenstein chapter 6 of part 2. Which chapter did you say if they're following along in the electronic version that we posted earlier?
Yeah, if you're on the public domain online version, this is chapter 14.
Got it. All right. So volume 2, chapter 6, or chapter 14, depending. Okay. In this chapter, we actually get the backstory. So we are at a story within a story within a story within a story within a story kind of thing going on right now. This is the center of it all, really. This is like the last story that then it just kind of unfolds backwards to the rest of the stories that we've already visited. So it's worked its way down to this story, and then it will work from this story outward, revisiting all of the other stories that we've already had up until this point. And in this one, we're learning about the family, right? The family that the monster has been watching. He thinks the world of them. He thinks they're just amazing. He really wants to be a part of that family. Everything he's learned about the world really has been learned from them, aside from the things he learned from pain, from bad interactions in other instances. So what do we learn about the family? What do we learn about how they came to be where they are?
Yeah, we get it's not even a little bit of taste, it's a lot of bit of taste of Mary Shelley's tendency towards breathless coincidence and misfortune and everything. It's with her, everything's at the extreme end of something. Nothing's normal, nothing's common, nothing's average, and that extends to the family de Lacey, which is what their name is. We only get the father's last name,
right?
So you got de Lacey, you got Felix de Lacey, Agatha de Lacey, and their nobility in France.
Right.
They're moderate nobility. They're not the
high end.
They're not the king and the queen. They're not Louis. But they're wealthy. They're people of means. They're respected in society. But most importantly, Mary wants to draw out for us that they're people of virtue.
Yeah.
And so they're going on living their life. Felix is a soldier, a man of action, but a man of honor, and finds out that there is a Turkish merchant who has been unjustly condemned by his suspicions because he's a Muslim and because he's rich. And out of his sense of virtue, resolves to free the man from prison before he's unjustly condemned and executed.
Right. So he actually acts, right? He sets there's a jailbreak. He breaks the guy out of prison.
Yeah, I am begging someone of means and talent and creativity to actually do a film based on the narrative of Frankenstein, to not focus on the monster more than, but this is really interesting and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it is. You could do just a movie about just this chapter. It would be a standalone amazing thing. But yeah, so they, Felix acts to break the man out of jail, helps to get him set free. And what are the consequences?
Well, the consequences, there's two consequences. First, right in the middle, Safie is introduced to the narrative, and we find out that her dad is a tyrannical, probably abusive, stereotypical, in all the most obvious way, stereotypical Muslim man, right? As is the Western European conception of the Turks during the early 18th century.
Right. Right. There's nothing nuanced.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
here's this horrible, horrible, horrible guy, and he just abuses women and takes advantage of situations. And um yeah, it is a caricature if you've ever seen a caricature.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Safie, her mom was a prisoner, a kidnapped, into a forced marriage, and Safie's mother was a Christian. Safie's mother raised her as a Christian, and Safie recognizes the kindness of Felix,
Hmm.
and so her manipulative, scheming father decides that he's going to use this as kind of the insurance that Felix doesn't get a little queasy on this, and guarantees the jailbreak. Uh, and so, in the course of events, at first opportunity, Safie's father betrays Felix, as Felix has kind of smuggled Safie and her father out of the country to Italy. Uh, the plot is discovered, and Lacey and Agatha have been arrested and thrown into prison. And Felix, who is a man of virtue and has a conscience, leaves the Turk, is what he's called, and
Right.
Safie to their own devices, hoping to reunite with Safie at some point in time if he can uh, free his father and sister by virtue of this is my problem, not your problem. And so he hastens to Paris and delivers himself up to the vengeance of the law. This is about Felix.
Hmm.
And the Turk sends him, a pittance of money for his troubles and just walks away a free man, no remorse whatsoever.
Hmm.
Uh, Felix, Lacey, and Agatha are thrown into prison, and then they're exiled to Germany as paupers.
Yeah, it's interesting. That this is the punishment, that they're
Yeah.
exiled. But that takes us back to the Garden of Eden, to
Oh,
Genesis, and here is the being exiled from Eden,
yep.
and it's
It's a bizarro Garden of Eden too, and that really comes
yeah,
up in the next two chapters. The Garden of
yeah.
Eden theme, especially in the next two chapters, really come up. But again, with this, the exile is there. But
Hmm.
for Mary Shelley, humanity has not lost any of its innate goodness.
Mm,
At least at least certain parts of Western civilization, right? And it's very much post-Enlightenment romanticism, which the real content in the chapter is on the entire description of Safie as a Christian.
yeah, so Safie and her mother, right, as
Yeah.
Christians, and she contrasts that then with the father, with the Muslim. But what is Shelley's conception of Christianity seem to be?
It's again very much post-Enlightenment humanism, and
Hmm.
so it's. I would love at some point in time to talk with someone like Karen Swallow Prior about this.
Hmm.
But my understanding is this is built is Mary Shelley as the author. Her conception of God is merely as an abstraction. God is the highest virtue. Uh, on the scope of religion, it's very much a Buddhist notion of God.
Yeah.
The highest enlightenment. So you get a description of Safie's mother. She instructed Safie in the tenets of her religion and taught her to aspire to higher powers of intellect and independence of spirit. That's the Christianity she was raised in. Now, from our perspective in the United States, that's very much the early establishment of the social gospel in the
Mm.
more liberal mainline Protestant denominations, and it's very much uh, English Anglicanism as it's being established in the land of England during the time, the early 1800s when Shelley's writing this.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
And so they get exiled, they go to Germany, and they establish a household there and a garden, right? So you do
yeah.
have the now it is kind of this bizarro Garden of Eden, but it's missing the one thing that will make it truly joyful. And
It's
that
missing
changes when
Eve.
Safie shows
Yep.
up. right? So now all of a sudden it is ideal, right? It's this perfect, oh, it's a humble dwelling, but it's enough. And we have this wonderful garden that we're working on, and we have this community. It's great, right? So it's you're in exile, but you actually in their exile they find um maybe greater joy than when they were um not in exile.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
the this just came to me. I'd like to see what you think about it, but it's very much an abandon. It's Gnosticism, right? It's an abandonment
There's something
of
there
the
about that. Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
abandonment of the material goods, and again, they're finding contentment in the pursuit of virtue as virtue. Okay, we're in the right. We do the right thing. We're
Yeah.
happy. But there is this is what just came to me. There's very much a Trinitarian commentary going on here with Lacey and Agatha and Felix,
Mm,
right? And that is matching up with Frankenstein's own Trinitarian conception of him, Elizabeth, and Clerval,
mm,
right? But what's going on is, if this is intentional by Shelley and her kind of warped understanding of what Christianity already is, the 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 Trinitarian conception is in one half of humanity. And so again, it's not a Trinitarian conception of God as outside of creation, as omnipotent, as all powerful. God is the pursuit of virtue, and then the identity of God is in the humans,
hmm.
which then would be completed by the arrival of Safie, who is Eve in the garden, and she completes not only Felix, she completes the whole family.
Hmm. Interesting.
And
Yeah.
it's worth pursuing. I mean, like I said, it
Yeah.
just popped into my
Yeah.
head. But if spoiler alert with the next couple of chapters, if you really take the corrupted Garden of Eden perspective of the monster, this is all set up for us.
Hmm. Yeah. And that Gnostic idea of abandoning the vocations that have been given to you, but finding greater joy in having lost those things and chosen for yourself what you are to do. Um, okay. So really, I don't know if there's that much more to explore in this chapter as we wrap it up. It's really giving us that backstory, giving us that context of kind of Eden restored for them,
Yeah.
and
Was it
how it's going to get.
Paradise Regained? Is that the name of the
Yeah,
sequel to
yeah,
Paradise
maybe,
Lost? Yeah.
yeah. Um, it's and so then it really sets the table for what's to come next. Anything else you want to add on this chapter?
No, it's, Safie arrives through her own tale of toil and peril and
Yeah,
coincidence and everything, which, I mean, it's an established pattern now in Frankenstein. It's endearing,
right.
but it's also a little bit smarmy, it's
Yeah, yeah. This one especially to me stood out as like, yeah, this is fanciful. It's it just doesn't have the tone of realism in any way.
well, and you get the sense that Shelley, she just really wasn't committed to this part of the plot. She was trying to get somewhere, and so she throws a couple
Yeah,
paragraphs at the end of the chapter to resolve the story.
it does resolve very quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and then she got there.
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. Well, so next time we will see what happens as a result of um, the monster being there, seeing this, and desiring to interact. So join us next time on The Word and the Works. He gone.